Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Teal back with another medical coding video for you. This time, I would like to go over a brief introductory to CPT coding, current procedural terminology. So what I have in front of me here is a CPT coding book, and AMA is the publisher of the CPT code set. Now, as with all of the coding sets, you really need to be very comfortable with your actual coding manual or your code book. You need to learn how to navigate through the code book, where to find things, and you need to be rather quick with making your way around. This is essentially important for those students that intend on taking any of the coding certification exams. In the industry, we may use electronic encoder products, but if you're going to sit for one of the coding certification exams, you must have your hard copy code books with you. So you must know how to use them and navigate around with them. And what I'm referring to when I say coding certification exams, we have two main national organizations that offer certifications for medical coders. And that's going to be AHIMA, or the American Health Information Management Association. And they offer the CCA, CCS, and CCSP coding credential. And then we have the American Academy of Professional Coders, or AAPC. And they have a variety of coding credentials as well. And the general coding credentials are your CPCA, your COC, and your CIC. You can go to either one of their websites to learn more about the coding certifications, but I just wanted to let you know that it is important for you to understand and learn how to use your code book. So today I'm just going to do a very quick rundown on the book itself, where to find things, and what to look for. So I have a particular publisher version in front of me, and this is not the only version that's actually out there and available. This is just the one that I happen to have. The front matter here, always in your code books, you're going to want to look for things that are like your introduction or index, that sort of thing. And in the CPT book, the inside cover actually has a lot of helpful information because it provides you information on what the symbols that are used throughout the book, what those mean. It has some of your commonly used modifiers. So as you're learning about CPT coding, you will learn about modifiers. And right here in the front cover is a quick reference to some of those modifiers. This particular version of the code book comes with these tabs that you can insert. So these tabs, you can pull these off the page and create tabs to run along the side of your code book, simply so that you can easily find things. So you see there's one where you can pull these off here and create a tab for your E&M section. See, they just lift up here. E&M, radiology, anesthesia, so on. That's helpful for you to be able to quickly flip there. I kind of am used to these colored margins, and the colored margins actually break up each of the sections. And so I've been in the habit of just looking for the different colored margins, and that's the way that I find myself navigating through the code book. You have, let me skip a little bit here till we get to the table of contents. So this is the table of contents for the code book, and I'm going to try and hold this page up a little bit because it tends to have a little bit of a glare. But you can see in the table of contents, it just tells you the layout of the book itself, just like you would expect for a table of contents for any book. So you can see you have your introduction and everything that goes along with that. There's some illustration and anatomical reviews. Then you have your evaluation and management section. CPT codes, in case you're not familiar with them, are used for your outpatient services, and they're also used to reflect the professional component of inpatient services. So when you are hospitalized as an inpatient, there are multiple bills that you'll receive for that inpatient stay. You have the facility bill, and that's what the hospital is going to bill. But then you're going to have a variety of professional bills, or what we call pro fees. And that's always captured with CPT codes. So you might have separate bills for your provider that came in and did an evaluation on you. You might have went to surgery while you were an inpatient, and so there's going to be some CPT surgical codes that the surgeon will bill. If an anesthesiologist participated in the surgery, there will be a separate bill for the anesthesiologist using anesthesia codes. Any radiology that takes place while you're an inpatient, there are going to be some radiology codes, pathology and lab. So that's what CPT is all about. So it's your hospital outpatient services, your clinic services, but also if you're admitted as an inpatient, any of the non-institutional bills. So any of the professional bills are going to have your CPT codes associated with them. Now, in front of every section, so let me get to one of the sections. This is a very important thing. So those of you that are familiar with ICD coding, ICD has the guidelines up in the front of their books, whether it be ICD-10-CM or ICD-10-PCS, the guidelines are always up front. Well, with your CPT coding, the guidelines are usually in the front of the section. So let me go past the index for E&M. So I'm in the red section with evaluation and management. And this is just another little mini index to let you know what is in this section. But then you have guidelines, okay? Every section is going to have guidelines. So see E&M guideline overview. Here's some more guidelines. And I'm going to just kind of go to a different color. Remember, the colors break up the sections. So you can see the red is evaluation and management, which we abbreviate as E&M, as you can see here, E&M. Blue is going to be anesthesia. And you see, once we get past the index, because every section has this little index of headings, well, then we have anesthesia guidelines. So these are what we call section guidelines. So here's all your anesthesia guidelines. Now, when we get to the next section, it's a green section. This is going to be the integumentary system. So surgery, the first section of surgery. Another thing to point out here is this little margin here on the side. It tells you like the subsection, the range of codes that you're in. So we're in surgery, and here we have integumentary. So this would be any surgeries performed on the integumentary system. And then we're still in surgery in the orange. You see up at the top, we are still in surgery, but now we're in the musculoskeletal. So the surgery section has surgery guidelines, and they're right at the front of the green. And the surgery guidelines apply to everything in the surgical section. But then you have these subsections. So like integumentary is one of the subsections. So we have some things here, some more guidelines in the integumentary. And then we have still in surgery, but now we're in the musculoskeletal system. Throughout the CPT book, one of the things that you're going to notice is these anatomical references. And these are always going to be very helpful for you if you are not well versed in your anatomy, and also just as a convenient reference right here within the book. And you'll notice that in many of the areas, you see we have these anatomical pictures that will help you if you're trying to pinpoint where exactly something is located, that sort of thing. So again, we're in the musculoskeletal subsection of the surgery section. And then we have our quick little table of contents again, just for this particular subsection. And then always, if there's any guidelines specific to this subsection, you'll find them at the beginning. So here we go, musculoskeletal system, and all of the guidelines that apply to the musculoskeletal section of the surgery section, okay? And then I mentioned the symbols and stuff that are used throughout the CPT Codebook, and that was in the front cover of the book. So remember back here at the very front, this cover, there's some symbols right up here at the top. You'll notice that they're also at the bottom of the page here, okay? So right down here, you're going to see that if it's a blue triangle, it's a revised code. If it's a red circle, it's a new code. These facing arrows contains new or revised text. So where you see these little arrows here, that's new or revised text from the previous edition. And then you have some other symbols. So pay attention to the legend that runs along the bottom. Both pages, you see there's going to be some symbols and the legend. One thing about CPT, when you're navigating around in your CPT book, one thing that they do in order to save space is they don't duplicate information. So you're going to see a lot of indented things. So when you have something like this here, you can see that this description runs along the margin, and then I have something indented. So this 20245 is indented. And what that means is that it carries the description from above, and then the distinction is right here. So for example, this one here, 20250, says biopsy, vertebral body, open, and then one thing that you need to notice is the semicolon right here. So everything that comes before that semicolon applies to this down here. So we're going to say biopsy, vertebral body, open, lumbar or cervical. That's how we would read this next term. So this is biopsy, vertebral body, open, thoracic, biopsy, vertebral body, open, lumbar or cervical. So that's how those little indented terms work. So same thing here, removal of foreign body in muscle or tendon sheath. Here's our semicolon. So this code would be simple, and this code would be deep or complicated. They just don't rewrite this whole description. So pay attention to those semicolons and the indents so that you know that you're reading the full description of a particular code. So this is the layout. Some other things that I want to point out to you is that some of these codes are going to be out of order because they've run out of space in CPT basically. And so these ones that have the pound symbol or a hashtag, these are kind of out of order. So you see 24075 and then 24071. So this one right here is a resequenced code. It's out of sequential order from the others. And so you'll really kind of have to pay attention when you're navigating around in here, because you might just be going along and see, well, I don't see it anywhere. Some of them are actually out of order. There's another symbol that I want to point out. So let me see if I can find an example of it. There's the add-on code symbol. So I'm just going to flip around a little bit until I see an example to show you. Okay, here we have some add-on codes. See the plus sign right here? There's a little plus right in front of this code. And what that symbol means is that this must always be added to another code. It's not a standalone code. It can never be used on its own. It's an add-on code. And it tells you by these little guideline instructions right here that you have to use 67332. So that's this one, in conjunction with a code from the range 67311 through 67318. So pay attention to add-on codes. You'll never be using them alone. And again, all the anatomical photographs, which are great. Now, those of you, again, that are used to ICD, you'll recognize that our index in ICD is usually in the front. The alphabetic index is in the front of ICD. Well, with CPT, the index is actually in the back of the book, just like you would find in any kind of a regular textbook or anything. The index for this one is in the back, and it gives you some instructions for the use of the index. One thing that really kind of varies with CPT in comparison to your ICD code sets is that often the index is going to give you a code range. rather than a single code. So those of you that might be familiar with ICD-10-CM or ICD-10-PCS, in ICD-10-CM, it's going to give you the first so many characters, and you go into the tabular list, and then you look at the little details just based on specificity to add your, remaining characters, whether it be your 6th or 7th character or however many. PCS is kind of similar, ICD-10 PCS, where the index will give you the first few characters to lead you to a table, and then you finish building your code from there. But what you're going to find in here is that the index might give you several code options. So see this example here, where if you looked up esophagus reconstruction, it's going to give you 43300 or 43310 or 43313. Well, how do you know? You got to go find those codes, read the description of those codes, and figure out which one applies to your scenario. And in some cases, what you'll get is a range of codes. And again, you would then go to that section and you would figure out, according to the description of those codes, which one applies to your particular scenario. So read all of this before you get to using the index. Read all of this to give yourself a good understanding of how to use the index. And then it's in alphabetical order, just like you would expect. It starts with the A's, and then your main terms are kind of bold, and then you have some indented subterms. And you can see here that there's instances where, sorry about the glare there, there's instances where you might be referred to a single code or several codes, you see. So you have to just kind of go down and look, and then you flip to that section in the book to find the appropriate code. And let me see, here's an example where there's one with a range of codes. So it has a little dash in the middle to tell you that you would go to this particular code range. And so let me zoom in just a little bit to give you a better view of that. I know I'm a little crooked here. So you can see right here is a range, 51860 through 51865. So somewhere in that range for a cystoscopy is what you would be looking at. A cystoscopy right here with these two, there's one code each. So you always, as we say in coding, you're always going to go back into the main section, or tabular if you're used to ICD terminology. You would always go here, you would read the description, and you would verify your code. You'd never code from the index. So we say that all the time with coding. You never code from the index. You always come here and read. Now, I talked about the guidelines that are in the beginning of the section, but also you'll notice in this case, I'm in the radiology section. So remember, navigating around in your book, you can always see what section you're in here. And then if there's a particular subsection, that's going to run along the margin right here with the range. Okay. And so some of these subsections have their own guidelines right here. So if you're selecting a code, so say I'm looking at this code right here, I want to make sure that I first review these instructions to see if there's anything that I need to be paying particular attention to with my coding scenario. Okay, so these guidelines are important. You might have noticed these little arrows here. This one's kind of a bluish color and this one's kind of a greenish color. They publish some additional references. So those of you, again, familiar with ICD, you might be aware of Coding Clinic. So we say Coding Clinic is an authoritative source, and they provide additional guidelines to supplement the official guidelines for coding and reporting that are part of your code book. Well, CPT has a similar. They have two publications. They have CPT Changes, and that gets published every year just to kind of go over what's new. And then their kind of equivalent to Coding Clinic is what's called the CPT Assistant. So if there's a CPT assistant article that provides guidance for a particular code, you're going to find that here. So in this case, CPT assistant, winter 91, 22, December 13, 17. So that's the reference. And those that use electronic encoder products, you're going to find these tools are often built in to the encoder product so that you would be able to like click on that and it would take you to that particular article so that you could read it and make sure, are there some guidelines in there that apply to your scenario that you need to be mindful of. So this is basically how you use the CPT Codebook. Okay, I'm going to go back to the table of contents. Bear with me for a moment as I flip around. So these are your main sections in bold, okay, in your table of contents. So we're going to have, let me scooch over here. Evaluation and management is one of your main sections. Anesthesia right here. So we got anesthesia. We have surgery. We have radiology. We have pathology and lab. That's one of your main sections. And then we have the medicine section. So I got to scooch over just a bit so you can see over here, medicine section. And as a reminder, let me not make you dizzy here. As a reminder, in the top of your book, those sections are reflected right here. So CPT is divided into sections. So see, all this is surgery and then subsection. So see, surgery, cardiovascular, surgery, eye and ocular adnexa. Radiology, then we've got diagnostic radiology. We've got radiology, radiation oncology. So this is all the radiology. And then we've got pathology and lab as a separate, medicine. So you see here, always at the top, so you know where you're at. And then again, here's your along the margin, similarly, see medicine, physical medicine and rehabilitation, medicine, physical medicine and rehabilitation. And it gives you the range of codes. This up here gives you the range of codes just for this page, whereas this gives you the range of codes for the section. Okay. So this is just a quick down and dirty on using the CPT book and how to navigate around within the CPT book. And I hope you find that helpful. If you like this video, please click the like button, subscribe to my channel here on YouTube so that you'll get notifications when I do publish additional content. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the presentation. Dr. Teal out.